afternoon, Barnabas.
Good afternoon, Godfrey. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Yes, today's session, we want us to talk about the linkage between strategy and culture. So without wasting time, I'm going to ask, what is the linkage between strategy and culture?
Thank you, Godfrey. When we talk about strategy, the leader is asking, how do we make choices of how to win in the medium term and of course in the long term? So with the strategy, the focus is on how to play to win. You want to play to win fairly and of course in a sustainable manner. For example, if you look at a football team, you want to make sure that you play a fair game, but also win in all the games coming, not only now, but also in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So that way you are sustainable. So the same applies to the business. You want to be able to create value in the medium term, in the short term, but also in the long term. You don't want to be a leader of the business and then it makes money now, but in 4, 5 years, you find that you are not able, you have not been investing in the right resources to be able to sustain that value creation. But when we talk about culture, culture fuels the spirit for how do we win the game and how the game will be played. You are looking at the game with a tempo. So that's why you see, why should some players continue pushing even when they are exhausted, when they have lost the ball? For some teams, when they lose the ball, you see they are walking and the pressure is coming to their goal, but somebody is basically just waiting for the few members to solve the problem, as which may lead to conceding the goal. So now the culture of feeling that I must go back and pick the ball, I must go back and support the others, is something which is special, and that's what makes the difference between average organizations and excellent organizations, average teams and excellent teams. And if you examine it carefully, you realize that when the players have an issue with the coach or they have an issue among themselves, Manchester United currently, if you follow football and such games, you realize that maybe they don't have the figure of working cohesively. Maybe because of the star factor, maybe one person is praised so much than the rest, even when they are doing the same thing. So you find that gradually creates something which is big. And when the team loses the ball, people don't have that inner feeling to go back and fight for that particular win. So that's why you see culture and strategy really are the two things, they must move together. We also say that strategy lays the roadmap, whereas culture fuels the intent and the action to start and complete the journey. So with culture, you're saying that, sorry, with strategy, you're saying this is where we would like to be, and this is how we will get there. But you may have these things written and it remains a drawer document, because people, they don't feel that the why we should wake up early and come to work. They don't feel the bond of how do we at the moving dangerous animal, you see as something we had been. So is a work of a right culture, because we knew if you go back, you have already walked 20 kilometers. Now imagine going back or waiting. It really is a big expensive. And remember, you would wake up at around 3 a.m. in the morning for that long journey. So at around where, as you are approaching the Rift Valley, that would be something like you have been walking it around midday or 2. It is too hot. You just want to arrive and get fresh water and just be able to relax. So you can't stop or go back. So it had been part of us. So that habit of not turning back despite the obstacle is the work of the right culture. And in many organizations, some staff simply give up when confronted with small obstacles. Somebody just doesn't do anything because they don't have fuel. Yet he has personal money on him, but because the company has not given the fuel money, or they have delayed to submit it, they just don't do anything. Instead of thinking quickly, what is the cost if I don't do this? What is the cost of the little fuel I am asking from the company? What if I use my own money and make a business case to my supervisor, so that they see that taking initiative works and delivers results, instead of giving excuses of procedural and bureaucracy. So that way people's eyes are opened. So because that is a work of weak culture, they will not take initiative. They will just weight for the organization. And that weight makes a customer unhappy, reduces the stakeholder value, reduces business tempo and growth, and really, if you put it in monetary terms, you find a lot of value has been lost. And as we say, you cannot execute strategy if you don't have the zeal to think quickly and keep moving with calculated risks. So strategy and culture are two sides of the same coin. However good your strategy is, you can't achieve anything if you don't have a right culture of high performance. Thank you. Back to you, Godfrey.
Okay, thank you very much. But how do you help an organization to understand its current culture?
To do that, we have what we call a cultural audit. So when you do a cultural audit, you are able to understand. But before we go to a cultural audit, what is culture? We say that a right culture provides a foundation to do the right thing. Do not start speeding before you define the destination. A culture to put in place a strategy is critical. For example, if somebody just wakes up from the bed and begins running in another direction, chances that they are going to end nowhere, or they will arrive at a destination and realize that there is no value or nothing to add value there, is very high. So that's why everybody these days says speed without direction is not good. First define the direction, and then now you can begin running towards that direction. So, but the question is, why we do a cultural audit? A cultural audit helps to determine the values and the beliefs and the practices that are dominant in the organization, particularly when you start to focus on encouraging innovation, a winning attitude, agility, and implementing change initiatives for improved performance. Now, however, it is hard to clarify which values and subcultures are the strongest without a cultural audit. So you are not going to know, for example, what is the belief system? People may talk about our values are a collaboration, are a communicate, but how did you come with this? Because many times people sit in a boardroom and begin thinking of good things and say, what if this is our culture? What if this is our value? So you find that people come up with values which are disconnected with the realities of the organization. For more than 10 years, some kind of bonds in form of which defines business practices, but if it is not documented. So that's why before you define your values, it is very important to have a cultural audit so that you find what are those things which are dominant. And most times, what the cultural audit with the form of that. So values. People first learn this is currently what is driving our. We would like this, so that the corporate values align with the realities of the organization. Also, a cultural audit, as I have explained, will help to identify the dominant cultural type, the desired cultural type to find ways to win. In your current culture, is it toxic or is it productive? So you cannot improve something that you don't know. A cultural audit is a sign of great leadership for the willingness to transform the organization, because you are then able to identify what culture is necessary and what is currently prevailing. A business transformation gurus always say culture drives expectations and beliefs. Expectation and belief drive behavior. Behavior drives habit. Habit creates the future. And that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Actually, they attribute this quote to Peter Drucker, and of course, that is a management guru, a great thinker, and he's spot on when he gives us something like that quote. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So if you don't know the culture which you have, you will talk so many things, but the people will be following the culture because people action is more important than words. And finally, what I can say is if you are doing a cultural audit, where do you start? I would say the same place you would start any investigation around any critical aspect of your business. If you realize that you're working too much, but money is getting lost, you start with an audit, a financial audit, or you conduct a revenue assurance. How much money do you expect? How much money have we recorded? But you cannot say that you don't understand the business and you don't do anything around it. If you are struggling with your marketing, you see you're spending a lot of money, but business income is not coming, you are not seeing the impact of the marketing effort, you conduct a competitive audit, but also a marketing audit to look at the value for money for your spending. The same thing, if people are coming late to work, people are moving as if they don't have a destination and direction, what do? You conduct an audit of their behaviors, and that's where cultural audit comes in. So once you do that, you will be creating a foundation to take your organization to another level. Over. Back to you, Godfrey.
Okay, thank you very much. The last part we have is how does a company hold productive meetings? Because most of the time, most people go into meetings and the meetings take forever.
Thank you, Godfrey. Most of the times, we spend a lot of time in meetings where everybody wants to be heard, and many people want to call people to a room and just to give them instructions. So this is why you realize that in many times people are sleeping in meetings, because it is more like a forum to issue out instructions. And people don't like to be instructed. People like to be challenged to think. So that they are given a problem and then they find solutions on their own. So traditional agendas and behaviors and practices for meetings make them unproductive, whereby you have agendas of communication from the chair, just telling you anything. Then you have an agenda which is followed by things like review of the previous minutes. Then you have an agenda of reports from different departments. So you find that this kind of meeting, and then after that you say next steps. So you find that this kind of meetings invites people to spend over 80% of the meeting time on the past. Remember, you're talking about minutes of the previous meeting, that is the past. You are talking about reports from various departments, that is the past. You are talking about comments, that is the past. So you cannot therefore drive an organization if you are allocating 80% of your critical people in a meeting to the history. So this is why we introduced every leader is encouraged to appreciate the modern way of doing things. Begin with conflict of interest declaration, because that opens up minds. It gives people the opportunity to explain if they are conflicted or not, and then you solve the conflict there and then. Then it gives key meeting outcomes. The chair should give key meeting outcomes. Even if you are giving the context of what is happening and the perspectives, it is very important to give key meeting outcomes. Then you direct the conversation and the discussion of the meeting. You don't want to just tell people how your day was, how your week was. Just tell people by the end of this meeting, we expect ABCD to be done. We expect ABC decisions to be done, so that the conversation is more laser focused, other than being generic and just wasting people's time. And then after that, let people ask questions to the CEO and the leadership. It is a tough in the beginning meetings. Many leaders will not allow things like this where the public asks them questions, because that means that people are going to raise an issue. But it is very good to get people in your team to ask questions which are strategic. Even if they're operational, then you can guide them that this meeting is about strategy. So let us focus on strategy, not operational things. This person will solve that operational issue. And then, of course, it is very important to review matters of previous meetings, just the matters, because those are action points. What should have been done and what was done, and what is the status, how much money is required. And from there, focus on reviewing the scorecard of initiatives. Remember, when you are leading as a business, you have sat down and identified mission critical areas, which are a part of your scorecard. So if you have priority scorecards, gross, let the people who are responsible for each of those areas tell you the status and progress on each of those areas. That way, you are able to find what is impeding growth, take the lessons, and adjust immediately, so that you are able to progress. And finally, it is advisable to have an innovation minute, where you give the team members opportunity to understand what are the challenges and what is the easiest way to solve them. So that keeps the team aware of the current challenges. Remember, this is a controversial meeting agenda, but it creates a conflict. And conflict is a sign of healthy relationships. Many times, if people stay together and they are always yes, there is going to be a problem, because it means that one of the two is not thinking. And if somebody is not thinking, then the one who is thinking could cause a lot of losses. But if you get questions and you are challenged in your way of doing things, that means that that is a very healthy, and it makes you to read, to stay awake, and also to prepare before you come to the meetings. So because of this kind of meetings, you want papers for the meeting, for each of these agenda items to be very specific. You don't want the chair to come without having communicated the key outcomes of the meeting. And you don't want people to come when they don't have briefings on the critical discussions of these key outcomes. So that way, everybody adds value, the meeting takes less time, but the few time it takes, it is more productive, and it avoids the bias of too much airtime with few people. It gives people opportunity to speak and add value to the organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.